Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est long, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Dr. Dixon, I heard you reporting some very disturbing numbers earlier today. Tell me if this is right. Your hospital has 131 beds and 224 patients. What's the situation tonight?
So our campus partner, Martin Luther King Community Hospital, it's a dire situation. Walking by, the emergency room every day, we're at the point now where there's no space for the paramedics. There are stretchers outside. There's now a tent system outside where there are beds and people waiting outside for care. This is someone's grandmother or grandfather outside waiting to try to get in to get care that they need in the hospital.
So what do you need right now? What do you need, Dr. Dixon?
We need resources. We are in dire need here in Los Angeles County for resources, especially staffing. That is where we are. The other thing that we really need is for Los Angeles County to stay at home. Not only Los Angeles County, everywhere, in the U.S., we need everyone to stay at home. But really, where we are right now, we can't take very much more at the time.
Yes, Cedars-Sinai Health System in L.A. issued a crisis alert to its patients, urging them not to travel for New Year's. Do you get to the point, Dr. Dixon, where you just don't know what to say anymore as people continue to go out, as people continue to travel over the holidays?
I still have something to say. Please stay at home. We saw what happened with Thanksgiving. We saw what happened with Christmas. We saw the malls. We saw the pictures of everyone at the airport. We know that what's to come in the next 4 weeks is devastating. Right now in Los Angeles County, in every 10 minutes, someone's dying. That's someone that is not going to make it to 2021 with us. We need to do better. And so I know what to say. Please stay at home. Wash your hands. This new strain is something that we're not surprised about, but it's something that we can protect ourselves from.
Dr. Redlener, I feel like we're back where we were, April or May, when you and I were talking about what was going on in New York, except we were supposed to have had experience. As Dr. Dixon says, that's somebody's grandmother or grandfather in a tent outside a hospital in Los Angeles. They don't have the people they need to take care of them. They don't have the beds they need indoors to take care of them. What needs to be done right now? From an organizational standpoint, from the federal government, from the state government, what do we do, Dr. Redlener?
So, Chris, there's actually, unfortunately, a number of things that we have to do simultaneously. This is not a menu of options. We need to make sure that we've had the temporary facilities set up that we know all about. We did this, as you said, in the spring in New York. We need the Army Corps of Engineers to build outdoor facilities and tents and so on, and other special spaces which can be adapted. We need to make sure that we have enough PPE in stock, and I'm afraid that's not actually the case right now. And we need to think about backup personnel resources, and not just bringing people out of retirement is something I've always been concerned about, because the people that come out of retirement are usually older, obviously, and they're going to be at risk themselves. But there are federal assets, people that work in the VA hospital systems that might be released, and also the U.S. Public Health Service. So we have resources, but somebody has to be managing this entire process. And at the same time, Chris, of course, we have to be thinking about the distribution and administration of the vaccines, which are really going to get us out of this horrible crisis ultimately. But as Dr. Dixon said,
well, I want to ask you about that if I
impossible.
can, because I want to ask you about that because I was watching what was happening in Lee County, Florida. Seniors waiting overnight in hours on long lines. They're basically told first come, first serve, and so they're out there in the middle of a pandemic waiting. Here's what Colorado's governor had to say tonight on MSNBC about how his state is handling vaccinations.
UC Health and county health departments that are giving inoculations to seniors, they're scheduling it. They're scheduling it online, 15 minutes, the people sign up, they show up, they get a reminder. It's unfathomable that people would be forced to, especially our vulnerable seniors, would be forced to spend the night outdoor in line. We would not allow any of our distribution partners to engage in that kind of activity.
Dr. Redlener, we had 9 months to plan for this. We've been waiting for a vaccine. It's here now. Assess what you're seeing so far.
Well, it's a nightmare, actually, Chris, and the fact that we had so long to prepare, and not only that, we had a vastly complicated, serious situation last spring. It was right in front of us. We knew what went wrong, and we knew what we had to do to take care of it. I think this is just like maybe the final step in a string of incredibly incompetent capacity to deal with whether it's testing or distributing the vaccines or planning for these emergency situations for this raging pandemic. This has just been a mess since the very beginning. It's something that history is not going to judge very well. And I do want to emphasize, too, that the Biden team comes in just a few weeks from now, and they're going to have a huge mess to clean up in terms of the various processes. And this is not going to be a magic bullet either, these guys coming in, because they have a lot of work to do to play catch up and try to get ahead of this virus right now. But it's a heck of a legacy from the Trump administration to the next team coming into town.
It is Thursday, the 31st of December of 2020. And you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays on this last day of 2020. Indeed. Hey, wasn't it a year that we would like to maybe not have back? Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to do that one again. The residuals of it will be going on for a few more months, I suspect. Well, looks like Gunner is snoozing quite loudly, so it is the last day of the year, so we're going to let him celebrate. How are you? Yes, you, all of you out there. We made it, and old man 2020's leaving, and we're going to bring in the new baby of 2021. Though some things, as I just alluded to, will probably remain the same and get even more. And when I say more, I mean with a capital M. Yeah, capital M more. I cannot wait for those New York Times articles valorizing white national insurrectionists calling for sedition at that small town diner. I think it's in Pennsylvania, isn't it? Well, it can be anywhere, as long as it's a small town, and as long as they are really just the crazy people that never even show up to the city council meetings unless they're armed outside. Oh, God. Yeah, we have a story about that. Yeah, armed protesters. And I got to tell you, they aren't from Black Lives Matter. For some reason, they're trying to gaslight us and saying that Black Lives Matters were awash in guns. No, the only guns that was awash were the cops using them to beat down the Black Lives Matter protesters. These people. When I say these people, I mean like somebody that's like not part of us. I don't know if they're even from this planet anymore. Josh Hawley, well, I don't know what to say about him, except he is a prep school populist. Trying to come out there as the everyman. That guy has the frat boy look that I got to tell you just really gives me. I don't know why I have such a visceral reaction to those types, those people. Back in the day, it was not really cool to be part of a frat. If you were part of a frat, you were a square. Little did we know that they weren't squares, but they were the movers and shakers of society, and they're going to move and shake society, and then everybody's going to blame the boomers for their actions. Boy, look, nobody who protested the Vietnam War belonged to a frat, and I think I'm pretty accurate in that assessment, because it wasn't only uncool. See how you get that double negative? But maybe a triple negative makes it okay. Yeah, it was uncool to be part of a frat or a sorority, though I gotta say, because we were, not quite evolved in terms of our gender politics, it was okay if the sorority girls belonged to sororities, because I'm going to tell you, some of them were quite political in a liberal way too. Not always just the socializing aspects. When I say socializing, you know what I mean. Yeah, they don't call those socials socials. They're pretty wild parties, except the frats did have the wilder parties. There's no getting around it, and that was abhorrent. So, Josh Hawley, prep school populist, calling for sedition in the United States. He's not going to recognize an election. Why is it that we have to put up with this? We have to reach across the aisle when they have not allowed us the respect. They believe that we cannot be part of our government. And when I say we, I mean we Democratic voters, Democratic leaders. Our Democratic representatives are not given the right to lead, to govern. We are the hoi polloi, and we are vile. We're the mob. That's why they had to create the Senate. So prep school populists like Josh Hawley can sit up there and say, we didn't want democracy to do that. So he's going to contest an election. I got to tell you, back in the day, when I say back in the day, it wasn't that long ago in back in the day, because I was a full-grown adult approaching middle age. And I got to tell you, it kind of pissed me off that Al Gore wimped out and allowed GW to steal that election. And my professional historian father and I discussed it at length. Not vociferously. We didn't have those kinds of discussions. But he convinced me that Al Gore did the right thing, because the Constitution of the United States was much more important to Al Gore than upsetting the constitutional succession of power. It meant more to him because he believes in America. He wants the great experiment to continue and hopefully succeed and create a more perfect union, a better and more perfect union. Yeah, there you go. So I couldn't be pissed off at Al Gore, because Al Gore is an American and he loves America. Even though everybody and their mother knows that that election was stolen, down to the United States Supreme Court saying, oh, well, we're going to rule on this, but you can't use this as precedent ever again. And now they are. The same people the Brooks Brother rioters who stormed the Miami-Dade elections office and pounded on the doors and terrorized those people to stop the count, now sit on the Supreme Court. Isn't that coincidence? All of them, prep school. I don't know if they're populist. Josh Hawley being a prep school populist. He's the prep school populist. It's an oxymoron when you get down to it, right? So all of them are prep school types when you get down to it. I think even Judge Amy. Well, on the other hand, she's been prepped quite well then. And we're supposed to allow these types, who apparently have no moral structure. I guess that's what they don't teach in prep schools. To have a sense of morality. Simply being a good neighbor. How about that? Maybe opportunism is what is taught rather than citizenship. Is that what they teach in prep school? Because I got to tell you, I gave up on the Ivy League education as being a gauge to a person's station in life and how you could trust them because of GW. What a dimwit. I mean, they let that guy into Ivy League schools? Well, of course, because of his legacy. Now, Josh Hawley did score higher grades and at Stanford than any other student ever, apparently. He was tops. Which makes him, a bit more dangerous, don't you think? Because Mussolini could make the runs on time. He wasn't that much more than a dimwit, let's be clear. But he did make the trains run on time. And we have been concerned about what happens when they get a fascist here in America who can make the trains run on time. They thought Trump. They got a madman. They got the madman Mussolini part, but not the other part where he can, run things. They thought he was a businessman, please. So Josh Hawley knows what to do. He's going to try to run for president, which is a little odd to me. Because if you're intent on destroying democracy, what do you need elections for anymore? Oh, I know, to put up pretense, because that's what prep school populists do. All pretense. Just like they have in Mother Russia now. The mob government of Vladimir Putin. How about Erdogan's government there in Turkey? Oh, yeah. Orban's in Hungary, all of them. The pretense of voting. It's like breads and circuses. But, at least in the Roman era, when they had bread and circuses, that they gave you free food. They didn't just give you the circus. The bread was free. They didn't make you pay for it. Sometimes with your life. But here, they figured it out. They're going to give us bread and circuses and still make us pay, and we'll do it willingly. As long as we got it. Entertain us. That's all that matters, apparently. Well, it is a new year, and the voters have spoken, and I got to tell you, the insurrectionists like Mitch McConnell trying to F up America because his power is too important to him. One guy can run America like that. Oh, it's all process, of course. It's all legal. I love how he adds the poison pills. Oh, you think you can play with me, Nancy? I'm going to play right back with you. That laugh of his is so diabolical. The Grim Reaper, ruling the graveyard where democracy goes to die. But you know what? We're going to resurrect it. We're going to put on those paddles and start its heart again. You'll see. There's a reason Joe hasn't named his attorney general yet. Yeah. Because as a famous preacher once said that was reviled by the right wing, the chickens have come home to roost. And roost we will. All right, what's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy as we start off. Well, California's overwhelmed health system is under more pressure with news of a more contagious UK variant. Now a UK variant is not, calling a baby stroller a pram. No, it's a more contagious part of COVID. And I want to call it the UK variant. Or the UK virus. A lot of people say, well, that's racist. That's like, that's like calling it the Chinese flu. Well, I don't know. To me, it's rather apropos now, isn't it? Yes, it is. On the rest of the menu, New Hampshire's Republican governor canceled his outdoor inauguration ceremony, which is going to be a little later in January, because armed anti-maskers determine what is polite conversation now. That's right. The Census Bureau will miss the year-end deadline for apportionment numbers, jeopardizing Trump's plan to undercount immigrants, because that's been his plan all along. He hates them, along with Stevenson and Monica Goebbels. And cities are helping renters get their right to a lawyer in housing court. What? Government helping people? How dare they? After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the UN Human Rights Working Group said Trump's pardon of the Blackwater Iraq war criminals violated international law. But we don't follow international law because we are so exceptional here in America. And a little saber-rattling is par for the course as 2 U.S. warships sailed through the Taiwan Strait, drawing a severe rebuke from, Beijing. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the right-ish of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln because we monitor the chat room and Kelly monitors it. So thank you, Kelly, and thank you for everything else that you do. And if you would then take a look across the page near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will then hopefully notice the Patreon link, and that is there, of course, because, we need help paying our bills, and I used to be afraid to tell people that, and I still am. But I'm telling you, and we pay our bills, and that allows us to fly under the radar and continue resisting, and it looks like we're going to have to still be resistance radio because of these white national insurrectionists calling for sedition at more than just those little small-town diners. They're right outside the mayor's house with their guns. And we need to resist that. And we do it in our small way, hopefully in a humorous and entertaining fashion, because when you're winning hearts and minds, sometimes you need to laugh a little bit, don't you? Anyway, it could be a dark humor type laugh with an OU. Yeah, humor with an OU. OU! Hey, so if you could afford an espresso type coffee drink and send those funds to us once a month, we then stretch those dollars and then we pay our bills, like I mentioned there. And thank you for your generosity. And we will be continuing because the show must go on, especially when you're trying to form a better and more perfect union. Yeah, indeed. Hey, if you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Thank you, Tom, for taking care of that and everything else. I, of course, take care of at Justice Putnam, and I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes about 10 minutes before showtime, and then post that up on Twitter, and you could follow me there at Justice Putnam. And I also post the show notes and links, diary links to other social media platforms also. The big one we'll leave unmentioned because you know which one, Zuckerberg. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at Cookbook West. And please pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and really wherever podcasts can be found. Thank you. All right, let's dive in. I'm back into that. Let's tuck in. Yes, tuck into this next repast. A little mental gymnastics here as we played up the first offering in this Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And it is Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays, New Year's Eve day. Kathy McCormick from the Associated Press does bring us this first offering here. New Hampshire's Republican governor said yesterday, Wednesday, that he is canceling his outdoor inauguration ceremony next month, which is tomorrow, but it's towards the middle of the month, because of public safety concerns, namely armed protesters who have been gathering outside his home in the week since he issued a mask order. They're not protesters. If they are armed and they are maskless, those are not protests. Those are terrorist acts. We need to start calling it what it is, even when they're white. My responsibility is ensuring the safety of my family and our citizens, and I guess his family comes first because, hey, he's a family man. Governor Chris Sununu said in a news release, "For weeks, armed protesters have increasingly become more aggressive, targeting my family, protesting outside my private residence, and trespassing on my property. An outdoor public ceremony simply brings too much risk. We do not make this decision lightly, but it is the right thing to do, so I guess the Republican Party is the party that gives in to terrorists, especially when they're from their own ranks." In consultation with Attorney General Gordon MacDonald, Sununu said, he and Senate President Chuck Morse, Acting House Speaker Sherm Packard, and the Executive Council will be sworn in during a small ceremony January 7th, so it's just coming up. It will be attended by leaders of both houses of the legislature and will be virtually attended by all other members. Oh, they're going to do it by Zoom so somebody can, I don't know, hack it with porn. We'll see how that turns out. Sununu will deliver his inaugural address at 7 p.m. that day. Protesters started gathering outside Sununu's home in Newfields on November 22nd over his order, which had taken effect 2 days earlier, requiring masks to be worn in public spaces, indoors or outside, when social distancing is not possible because of the coronavirus pandemic. On Monday, local police issued summonses to 9 people and arrested one of them under a new anti-picketing ordinance passed by the Newfield Select Board, on which Sununu's brother sits. Oh, good. Skylar Bennett, 38 of Concord, said yesterday, Wednesday, he will contest his arrest on charges of criminal trespass and disorderly conduct at a candlelight vigil held outside the home. Oh, really? When Sununu issued the mask order, he said at the time a mandate was appropriate given the rising percentage of positive test results, the fact that the number of people hospitalized with COVID-19 had doubled in the past 2 weeks. There were new outbreaks at 5 nursing homes, and an incredibly alarming rate of community transmission by people who are not showing symptoms. And the order expires on January 15th, but these people are such whiners. They can't do enough of their civic duty, even to the 15th of January. It's just too much for them. At least 100 armed people appeared outside Sununu's home at the first protest. Frank Staples of the group Absolute Defiance said protesters chose the site because Sununu had shut everything down, including the State House. So right now, his home is the State House. Oh, is that what terrorists think? There have been more protests since then, That led to the December 22nd passage of the ordinance by the 3-member Newfields Select Board. The governor, who was not at home during Monday's gathering, had no involvement in the ordinance or its enforcement, Sununu spokesman said. The ordinance says it is unlawful for any person to engage in picketing before or about the residence or dwelling of any individual in the town of Newfields. Violators are subject to a $100 fine. I hate to say this, but I don't think that is actually constitutional, but we'll see. Because they can be in the middle of the street, which is public property, but they then would be obstructing traffic now, wouldn't they? I wonder how this will work. Well, property is king here until somebody like from Russia says, no, it's not. According to the minutes of the December 8th board meeting, Newfields Police Chief Nathan Liebenow said the November 22nd protest was described as very boisterous and disturbing and generated a number of complaints from residents. And I guess if you're violating noise ordinances and you're rattling your guns and you got bullhorns in the middle of the night, maybe that's not being a good neighbor. There have been at least 3 more gatherings since then, and Liebenow said more events were planned into January. He said, the intention of the ordinance is not to suppress or violate anyone's constitutional right to free speech because people need to understand. You can't just go into a crowded movie theater and yell fire, especially during a pandemic, because you're not even supposed to be in the movie theater. The Newfields Police Department, in its news release, said the 9 people were advised of the town's residential picketing ordinance and instructed to stop, but didn't do so, so they were given summonses. Police did not provide names other than Bennett's, but the New Hampshire Journal said one of its reporters, Chris Maidment, was given a summons, even though he repeatedly identified himself as a reporter covering the event. The Journal said it will contest the summons and fine. Mike Schneider of the AP brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Census Bureau will miss a year-end deadline for handing in numbers used for divvying up congressional seats, a delay that could undermine Trump's efforts to exclude the people in the country who are undocumented from the count if the figures aren't submitted before President-elect Joe Biden takes office. The Census Bureau plans to deliver a population count of each state in early 2021 as close to the missed deadline as possible. Any issues that could affect the accuracy of the data are detected. They are corrected, the Census Bureau said in a statement. The schedule for reporting this data is not static. Projected dates are fluid. It will be the first time that the December 31 target date is missed since the deadline was implemented more than 4 decades ago by Congress. Internal documents obtained earlier this month by the House Committee on Oversight and Reform show that Census Bureau officials don't expect the apportionment numbers to be ready until days after Biden is inaugurated on January 20th. Oh, too bad. Once in office, Biden could rescind Trump's presidential memorandum directing the Census Bureau to exclude people in the country illegally from numbers used for divvying up congressional seats among the states. An influential GOP advisor had advocated excluding them from the apportionment process in order to favor Republicans and non-Hispanic whites. Oh, really? So, in other words, they don't care about what the Constitution says, even something more sacrosanct than apportionment. The delay suggests that the Census Bureau needs more time to ensure the accuracy of the census numbers for all states, said Terry Ann Lowenthal, a former congressional staffer who specializes in census issues. By law, the Commerce Department must present the president's to the president by year's end with population figures from the 2020 census. Data then used to determine how many seats in Congress each state gets. The president then is required to submit the numbers to Congress in early January. The Commerce Department oversees the Census Bureau, which conducts the once-a-decade head count of every U.S. resident. However, there are no penalties for missing the deadline. For the Census Bureau, goals number 1, 2, and 3 are completeness, accuracy, and usefulness. They like to maintain the schedule, but they can't be a priority for them. And that was Kenneth Pruitt, a former Census Bureau director during Clinton's administration. Besides deciding how many House seats each state gets, the census is used for determining how the $1.5 trillion in federal funding is distributed each year. And you know Trump thinks he can dip into that and siphon some off for himself. Regina Garcia Cano of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. As the economic effects of the coronavirus pandemic stretch into 2021, millions of U.S. renters are bracing for the possibility of having to show up in housing court to avoid getting evicted. But unlike their landlords, only a small fraction of them will do so, flanked by an attorney. Fewer than 10 cities and counties nationwide guarantee tenants the right to a lawyer in housing-related disputes. And for people struggling to make ends meet, an attorney is beyond their means, leaving many to skip their court hearings or walk in knowing they have little chance. Unlike criminal cases, an attorney won't be assigned if someone can't afford one. Legal aid organizations and pro bono lawyers represent many renters every year, but the need outpaces what they can handle. While housing advocates have primarily pushed for rent relief from the government, experts also expect more cities to join the movement to give tenants the right to an attorney. The push for right to counsel preceded the pandemic, and is particularly acute and particularly urgent in light of the pandemic, given just the overall precarity that renters are facing, said Gretchen Purser, an associate prof of sociology at Syracuse U. She said, legal representation is going to be one of the most important things that groups around the country are pushing for. Many people owe months of back rent, having lost their jobs or faced mounting medical bills during the health crisis. By January, renters will owe as much as $34 billion, according to estimates by the global investment bank and advisory firm Stout. An estimated 23 million people are at risk of getting evicted. Well, that brings us to our break. And I guess we deserve it now, don't we? So when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, refueling. There are a lot of nits you can pick in Wonder Woman 1984. The mascara doesn't really fit in the story, but they take us there anyway. The conceptual link that anchors the movie's theme to Diana's spiritual core isn't really a thing. And exactly which Amazon thought that golden suit would work as armor? Was it the one who fled the island and later took a job designing new wave ensembles in Milan? And also, Diana and Steve fly across the world and back. When and how did they refuel that plane? You could go to town. But unless you're a sick person who gets off on feeling superior at someone or something else's expense, why would you? You'd just be missing all the great things that Wonder Woman 1984 has to offer, and there are many. Do we need their mascara? No. But be honest, we want to go back there. And anyway, the whole segment rocks. Here's Steve Trevor, even though the character died 70 years prior. But again, they make him work. And yeah, the golden armor, but it's also kind of fabulous. Look, sequels are hard, and there were a lot of hopes and expectations riding on this one. And under that pressure, Patty Jenkins hooks up the fuel lines and delivers us a colorful and fun fable that pulls us so much into the struggles of the characters that when the fights finally come, we say, oh yeah, there's supposed to be action scenes here. Plus, Chris Pine, Kristen Wiig, Pedro Pascal, and of course the returning Gal Gadot all deliver some really warm and fun moments. And I like this whole thing of Wonder Woman movies being about lessons that Diana has to learn to make her more mature and wiser in a world of mostly unquestioned privilege. Look, just remember what I've told you. Not even a melodrama, Wonder Woman 1984 is closer to a fable where it's more important to confront what's inside of you than defeat what's coming at you. And it's also welcome proof that the first film wasn't a fluke, that Wonder Woman movies are 10 times better than any other flick that DC puts out, except for Aquaman. They're only 2 or 3 times better than Aquaman. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. When it snows this winter, make sure you clear more than your driveway. Before you hit the road and before you get in the driver's seat, check to be sure that your vehicle's tailpipe is clear of snow. If the tailpipe is blocked, carbon monoxide, an odorless, colorless, and deadly gas produced by your engine can build up quickly inside your vehicle, poisoning anyone inside. To learn more, call 1-800-CDC-INFO. That's 1-800-232-4636.
In 2012 in the United States, about 317,000 motor vehicle crashes involved a large truck. 26,000 truck drivers and their passengers were injured in these crashes, and about 700 died. Trucker safety requires an alert, buckled-up, experienced driver with a reliable vehicle and a strong employer safety program. Seatbelts are the most effective way to prevent an injury or death in a motor vehicle crash, but in 2013, 1 in 6 drivers of large trucks didn't use their seatbelts. Employers can help truck drivers stay safe by committing to driver safety programs at the highest level of leadership, establishing and enforcing driver safety policies, including requiring everyone in the truck to buckle up, and addressing factors that contribute to crashes, such as drowsy and distracted driving. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
Ho, ho! Wait till you hear about the gifts I gave to some of America's power elites for Christmas. To each of our Congress critters, I sent my fondest wish that from now on they receive the exact same income, health care, and pensions that we average citizens get. If they receive only the American average, it might make them a little bit more humble and less cavalier about ignoring the needs of regular folks. To the stockings of GOP leaders who've so eagerly debased themselves to serve the madness of Donald Trump, I added individual spritzer bottles of fragrances like Essence of Integrity and Eau de Self-Respect to help cover up their stench. And in the stockings of Democratic congressional leaders, I put Spice of Viagra and Bouquet du Grassroots to stiffen their spines and remind them of who they represent. For America's CEOs, my gift is a beautifully boxed brand new set of corporate ethics. It's called the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Going to pollute someone's neighborhood? Then you have to live there too. Going to slash wages and benefits? Then slash yours as well. Going to move your manufacturing to sweatshops in China? Then put your office right inside the worst sweatshop. Executive life won't be as luxurious, but CEOs would glow with a new purity of spirit. To the Wall Street hedge fund hucksters who've conglomerated, plundered, and degraded hundreds of America's newspapers, I've sent copies of Journalism for Dummies and offered jobs for each of them in their stripped-down Dickensian newsrooms. Good luck to each. This is Jim Hightower saying, and what better gift to the Trump family, Donald, Ivanka, and Jared, Eric, Donnie Jr., and the whole nest of them, than to wish that they live with each other constantly and permanently. No, really, no need to thank me. Each of you deserve it.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
This Civil Liberties Minute is the second in a series about the president's pardon power. I'm Bill Newman. According to Harvard Law professor Jack Goldsmith, of the 65 pardons that President Trump had bestowed as of December 23rd, he's given 60 to people who have helped him politically or who have personal ties to him, including family, like Charles Kushner, and political operatives who had lied to the FBI to protect him, like Roger Stone, and his first national security advisor, Michael Flynn, and white-collar thieves who had politically supported him, like former California Congressman Duncan Hunter. Worth noting, a president wielding his pardon power near the end of his term is not unprecedented. Bill Clinton issued 175 pardons his last day in office, including one to his half-brother Roger for drug charges and one, to wide criticism, to Mark Rich, a fugitive and financier whose ex-wife had donated a chunk of money to the future Clinton Presidential Library. So, the Constitution's broad power to grant pardons and commutations allows the pardons, but that fact does not necessarily end the story. Because when it comes to pardons, Congress definitely can investigate and perhaps can legislate as well. And some legal scholars argue that if there was a quid pro quo for a pardon, such an action could violate federal criminal law and put the people involved at risk, which means that chapters in the story of Trump's pardons may well remain to be written. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1987. That was the day OSHA issued its final rule on grain handling facilities. This standard was established almost 10 years after discussions and congressional hearings began on the subject. There had been a series of catastrophic explosions in the late 1970s, which dominated national attention. A special task force was created by the U.S. Department of Agriculture to investigate grain elevator safety and explosions after 13 USDA inspectors were killed in 1977. 5 separate incidents involving grain elevator explosions killed 59 and injured another 49 just in December of that year alone. The USDA task force issued a report with guidelines soon after the National Grain and Feed Association conducted its own research and guideline issuance. By 1981, the Food and Allied Service Trades Department of the AFL-CIO petitioned OSHA to promulgate a new rule regulating the buildup of explosive dust in grain elevators. When the final rule was issued, it focused on requirements for the control of fires, grain dust explosions, and hazards associated with entry into bins, silos, and tanks, as well as hazards associated with the release of hazardous energy from equipment. The standard held employers responsible for developing emergency action and escape plans, as well as worker safety training. The standard also set rules for safe entry procedures. When the standard came up for review in 1998, OSHA noted that for the previous 40 years, there had been 600 explosions, 250 deaths, and over 1,000 injuries related to grain elevator explosions. They also determined that there had been a 70% decrease in fatalities from explosions and a 44% decrease in suffocations in the years after the final rule had been issued. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, New Year's Eve of 2020. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 39 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting to be nearly the same as yesterday, which was around the mid-40s. Cloudy skies with some morning fog. We have a bit of drizzle still occurring after quite a bit of rain dropping late yesterday through the night. Winds will be light and variable with mostly cloudy skies tonight, lows in the mid-30s, and a little small chance of rain, though tomorrow we're expecting a high of around 50, with partly cloudy in the morning, then becoming cloudy with periods of heavy rain later in the day, looking to have about a quarter of an inch. Winds out of the south-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And it looks like we'll have rain all the way through the weekend and through next week. So copious amounts, as I have alluded to. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon now stand at 5,780, and our deceased have gone up several amounts to 71. The pollen outside the window here in Rogue River proper, outside the window of the mothership, is rated at none. The air quality index for the region is good at 27 parts per million. The daytime UV index is low at 1. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.26 inches. Visibility is down to 1 mile. And relative humidity is at 100%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 34 and mostly cloudy. Paris is 41 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 50 and just merely cloudy. Kyiv is 44 with a drizzle. Kabul is 32 with its smoke. Hong Kong is 46 and clear. Tokyo is 34 and clear with a freeze advisory. Sydney, Australia is 65 with a rain shower. San Francisco, California is 46 and sunny. And New York is 44 degrees Fahrenheit with a heavy rain shower. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. holiday staff at Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. Donald Trump's pardon of 4 American men convicted of killing Iraqi civilians while working as contractors in 2007 violated U.S. obligations under international law, UN human rights experts said yesterday, Wednesday. Nicholas Slayton was convicted of first-degree murder, while Paul Slough, Evan Liberty, and Dustin Hurd were convicted of voluntary and attempted manslaughter over the incident in which U.S. contractors opened fire in busy traffic in a Baghdad square and killed 14 unarmed, innocent Iraqi civilians. The 4 contractors, who worked for the private security firm Blackwater, owned by the brother of Trump's education secretary, were included in a wave of pre-Christmas pardons announced by the White House. Pardoning the Blackwater contractors is an affront to justice and to the victims of the Nisour Square massacre and their families, said Jelena Aparak, chair of the UN Working Group on the Use of Mercenaries, said in a statement. The Geneva Conventions oblige states to hold war criminals accountable for their crimes, even if they act as private security contractors. These pardons violate U.S. obligations under international law and more broadly undermine humanitarian law and human rights at a global level, the working group said.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Even more anonymous worker bees on the Reuters holiday staff bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. 2 U.S. warships sailed through the sensitive Taiwan Strait today, drawing protest from Beijing, the second such mission this month, and coming almost 2 weeks after a Chinese aircraft carrier group used the same waterway. China, which claims democratically run Taiwan as its own territory, has been angered by stepped-up U.S. support for the island, including arms sales and sailing warships through the Taiwan Strait, further souring Beijing-Washington relations. The U.S. Navy said the guided missile destroyers USS John S. McCain and USS Curtis Wilbur had conducted a routine Taiwan Strait transit on December 31st today in accordance with international law. The ship's transit through the Taiwan Strait demonstrates the U.S. commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. The U.S. military will continue to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows. This is the 13th sailing through the strait by the U.S. Navy this year. China's defense ministry denounced the trip as provocation and a show of force, adding Chinese ships and aircraft trailed the U.S. ships in their own provocation and show of force, I guess. The passage of the ship sent the wrong message to supporters of Taiwan independence and are a serious threat to peace and stability. Taiwan's defense ministry said the ships had sailed in a northerly direction through the strait on what it termed an ordinary mission. Taiwan's armed forces monitored the sailing, and the situation was described as normal, it added. Well, a little saber-rattling just before Joe takes over, eh? Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. And I'm going to tell you it's going to be for the week because we are actually going to recharge our batteries as we begin the new year. So you'll be seeing us on Monday for River City Hash Monday. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day, all night, and all through the holiday weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here on Monday, right here In West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.